we are going to go ahead and get right into it, because I know you got probably a lot of other stuff to handle today, since it's only 6 p.m.
Only 6 p.m. But you know what? It's about to be bedtime. Got to get dinner. Like it just feels like it's never ending. There's always something going on.
Thank you so much, Rashida, for joining us today. This is Leslie, the founder of the Collective Compass, and we are on another connected collective discussion, and we are talking about all the parenting boundaries. So, Rashida, I know for you, I've just been watching your journey, trying to get your business started. I want to let you go into more detail about what it is to be a doula and the type of work that you're trying to do to mentor people and to help that whole healing process that comes around being pregnant, that comes after the baby's born, and then honestly for the rest of their lives, our lives, together through parenting. So it can be really complicated in the beginning, and just watching you do everything you're trying to do with your career has been so inspiring, while also parenting a kindergartner now.
Thank you.
I also have a kindergartner. So I just want to say thank you so much for your input and your expertise in this discussion. We've got a couple of areas of boundaries when it comes to parenting. And for you specifically, I would love for you to share all of the things that you're doing with your daughter and how you create boundaries so that you can get the work done. And then I'm going to share a little bit about what I've been going through lately, and then you can share some things that you've been going through lately. But just to start it off, why don't you tell us a little bit about the work that you do in all areas of life, and then how you manage to have boundaries with your beautiful girl. She looks like a fireball. She looks so energetic and creative and just all the time wanting to connect, and I have one just like that, and it is so beautiful and it's so demanding. So how do you maneuver through all these things?
It's beautiful and demanding. Her personality is very different from mine. So I, in trying to get her to really give mommy some space when I do what I need to do, I also make sure that I don't dim her light either, because she's such a bright light and she's so social and she always wants to talk. But, there are moments where I'm like, okay, I need some quiet time, like absolutely no talking. So that does get really hard to manage. But I guess let me back up and just introduce myself. My name is Rashida, and I'm a mom. I am a co-parent. I am a postpartum doula. And I'm also, I don't like to really give myself titles, but I'll just say I'm a life coach for moms. So with the business that I'm trying to launch, is less about a title and more about the intention of really helping new moms and first-time moms, in that period after having a baby, making sure that they have a village, that they have the educational support regarding like your emotions, the mental health aspect, which is kind of what set me off on this journey myself. And so understanding what's normal, what's not normal, eliminating the stigma behind mental health. If you feel like, you're not really like yourself, but you might be afraid to speak out about it because, you'll be seen as weak, or you're not a good mom, or not strong. And so in my experiences, that made me realize that there's really a lot more support, and there's really a lot of education. There's a gap there. And so I feel like I've been called to this for a couple years, and I wasn't really sure how to go about it, because, I'm like, well, I'm going through my stuff. How in the world am I supposed to like help another woman going the same thing? But at the end of the day, I think it's helpful for women to have a story that is very raw and transparent and authentic, because if you're going to seek support, you're going to want to seek support from somebody who's very relatable. So as a Black woman dealing with mental health, as a Black woman who was a first-time mom, who also was going through a breakup and so many things that were going on, I felt the need to speak out and share my voice. So I ended up getting my certification as a postpartum doula. I also am launching a coaching program for new moms and first time moms who are feeling a little lost in the day to day of motherhood, and they're not feeling like themselves. They kind of feel like, oh, I'm a mom now. I can't pursue my dreams anymore. But that's absolutely not true. You know, we have one path in mind with the destination. We can have the same destination, we're just rerouted. So helping them to sort of reframe their mindset about what you still can accomplish as a mother. You know, being a mother, that's probably one of our greatest accomplishments ever, but it doesn't have to be the only great, you know, accomplishments. So that's kind of what I'm setting out to do here. And it's just been crazy myself trying to balance everything along with the full-time job. I work 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So setting those boundaries in place has really been really important in my productivity and moving forward in the things that I'm trying to do. So that was the long story long of how it all began.
And there's so much that you could go into in each area of your story. It's crazy when you just have to share the surface level and the condensed version, because each individual part of the journey is so complex, you know? And so when you just, I hope that you definitely take the time, and I just following your work, I'm sure that you do, because you encourage everybody else to do the same thing. But I just love the fact that you encourage others, and also hopefully take the time to think about all the progress that you've made, what you've come through, how long it takes to kind of process all these things that we're maneuvering through. And it always reminds me of that expression that the days are long, but the years are short, because each day in the thick of what we're doing can feel so exhausting and demanding, and also so motivating, because we want to do all these things that we're trying to do. And you have so much healing that I know you're passionate about sharing, just because of how much you had to get through mentally. I'm sure I don't know as many people that share as openly about their postpartum experience as you. And it's so obvious that you and your daughter are so connected. So what do you think the hesitancy is for women to be willing to speak out? Because I know it's uncomfortable to share. We all feel like, who's going to see this may perceive us as weak, or we always want to show all the things that we're proud of. And I think that it's important to be also so proud of our healing work and proud of our growth. And we all come from different backgrounds. We all have our different experiences. Our mother, I'm sure my mother was very different from your mother, and everybody has their own story, and everybody has their own personality, really, to have certain tools, certain strengths, certain weaknesses. And so it's just so interesting to hear how people have handled their own healing journey. And for you, it's just so empowering for me to hear all of the vulnerability that you always express. The other day, you said you needed to take a break from social media. I was like, I feel it, you know? And so I think it's so beneficial for people to tap into your platform, especially because you are such a reserved, introverted spirit, you say, but then to have the courage to speak on everything that you've learned, and know that it's to help other people have something to reference so that they can process. I know that has to take a lot out of you physically, mentally, spiritually. And so, I mean, does that almost force you to create certain boundaries? What are certain boundaries that you feel like you have had to create, to especially go deeper into that work of encouraging people to heal? Because I know that couldn't have been the same from maybe if you were just, you know, really passionate about the 9 to 5 that you had, and just wanting to, because I know before you did a lot of work in technology, right? Working with websites and building, you know, so many things. So I know, just honestly, I'm not a tech person. So just to hear all that sounds so much more complex than, you know, anything I could have studied. And so I'm just like, okay, how do you go from that to the healing work that I feel like we've had to create some different boundaries as we have transitioned from one area of work, even though it was really demanding, to the healing work. I mean, just to be that vulnerable every single day is a different kind of demanding. So are there any new boundaries that you've really had to get used to enforcing lately just with doing that type of work?
Yeah, I'm heavy on protecting my energy and really having a practice of grounding myself before, I go on social media or I'm talking to someone else, because I do consider myself an empath as well. Also very highly sensitive. So it can be really easy to not only take on the energy of other people, but the energy that I'm feeling inside from all these emotions, from all the trauma that I have experienced. Sometimes it kind of rears its ugly head, and so I have had to set boundaries for myself, and I'm using really self-care. I go into what I'm doing, whether it's a post or a video, with an intention in mind, and I do my best to stick to it. But before I do that video, I take a moment, do maybe a quick mindfulness meditation, some breath work, just really ground myself so that I'm already setting those energetic boundaries. And, I'm not projecting onto anyone else, and also not having others project onto me as well. And so it's given me sort of like this invisible circle of, I guess, sacredness, I would say, in doing this particular work, because it can get heavy. I'm not a therapist, I'm not a counselor, but when you're sharing your story, it opens people up to feel vulnerable and share, their deep things with you as well. So you really have to just make sure that you're nice and grounded in order to do that work. And that's something that I discovered. If I don't do that, I'm going to be all over the place, and then I'm not going to do what I set out to do. So I don't know if that makes sense or not.
Yeah, absolutely. And would you say that doing that type of work, is that something that happens more comfortably with a mentor? I mean, because I feel like that's a lot of what you're trying to also encourage people to do, is to normalize therapy, normalize the healing process, normalize that having a relationship with a mentor that can guide you through that, by you being a mentor that's already went through the process. There's just naturally things that you're going to see that
Mhm.
other people aren't going to see. And so I love that you're always encouraging people to do their own work. But I definitely think that a big part of being able to handle the load faster and easier is to not have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to figure it out on your own.
Yeah.
And I think that I love how you're always talking about building the community of support in the village, because our energy can be so much more empowered, and it can really stay grounded by just knowing that we have those connections. And did you work with any mentors while you were going through your healing process, or did you kind of just muscle it out on your own? Was it maybe like a live person, or books that you read through authors, or what did that look like for you?
Yeah, so in the beginning, I I told myself I was going to thug it out, because it was something that I hadn't experienced before. I wasn't even still sure what was going on with me. So it's like, well, I'm just going to push through, because I don't want anyone to think that I am, again, unfit or not good enough. I'm already not giving myself that grace that I deserve. But after a while, I knew, I was like, okay, I can't continue going on like this, because it also becomes self-isolating as well. And, I started to realize there were certain things that I was doing that wasn't very healthy. And, those are not things that I could pass down to my daughter, even though she was a newborn. Kids take on energy, like even from the womb, they take in all the
Mhm.
negative energy. So I was like, okay, I need to go talk to somebody. I ended up getting a therapist. And so that's when I was diagnosed with postpartum depression. And that therapist, began to give me some tools. She helped me to normalize what I was going through, because it is very common. Even though I didn't know any anyone around me who had went through it, it's possible that they could have been, and nobody has spoken up because, there is fear, there's anxiety around it. So I got my therapist, and my therapist was the one who recommended yoga for, the depression and anxiety that I was experiencing. So that kind of set me down this path of like wellness and self-care and really taking care of myself. I think it's really important. In fact, the moms that I work with, I would encourage them to also seek a therapist as well, because there are some things that I can't touch that a therapist can and help you work through. So I think that if nothing else, that is the most important thing. And then what I try to do in my work is to help moms also set boundaries, because I kind of grew up a people pleaser. It was hard for me to say no. And I think that's the biggest part of setting boundaries, is saying no, being okay with saying no, and not needing to explain yourself. That's that. Now, when it comes to younger children, it's much harder, right? Because most of the time they just want to be around you. They want to spend time, play with you. So you have to speak their language. For example, it was a lot harder when Delaney was not in school. I was working from home. She was at home with me. And so I'm trying to do work. She's over here trying to play. And there was just a lot of guilt that I felt for, saying, well, mommy can't work right now. She was watching YouTube. There was some screen time happening. And you know how a lot of moms can feel about screen time, but this is what worked for me at that time. Now she's in school, so it's a lot easier for me. But I will say there are times I still have to be very clear with her. Okay, mommy is about to get on a work call. I need you to go in the back and play. In about 30 minutes, mommy can play with you. And so it's being firm. It's also having empathy and affirming their feelings when maybe they're feeling a little sad or disappointed. Like, it's okay to feel this, but mommy still has to get work done. Along with that, follow through is very important as well. So with children, you can tell them, I have a very important job to do. I have all these responsibilities, but do kids really care at the end of the day? No. So I can tell her I have something to do. I'm going to set a timer for 30 minutes. When that timer goes off, that means mommy can take a break and play with you. So I've kind of had to adjust the way I go about setting my boundaries with my daughter, because they understand to a certain extent, but at the end of the day, they don't care whether you have a job or not. They just care that they want time with their parents. So it's speaking their language and following through in a way that still makes them feel wanted and loved and supported. So
yeah, I love the idea of a timer, especially having a 5-year-old as well that's trying to learn numbers and the concept of time. I think that would be really incredible. I may have to try that. Of course, then she'll be sitting there outside my door with it going tick, 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 So it might be like, maybe it'll be digital or something, but yeah, I love that timer. I love the idea of anything that you can do to occupy them without the screen. I have struggled with that, and I've noticed that that was my go-to. I mean, I have definitely some older siblings that can always maybe jump in to help feed my youngest, but as far as like them playing, it normally turns into a fight, or it normally turns into her getting tied up in the closet, or being there's no telling. We got makeup flying everywhere. There's a broke mirror, I don't even know what happened. And so it's been helpful for me when I have my time I need to work and not be interrupted, to give them specific instructions, specifically my youngest, to give her some specific suggestions on what she should go do, whether it's build me an entire city with these blocks, and and then draw a picture of it afterwards, or something that's going to take her a really long time, and even then she gets more excited to tell me about or show me afterwards that she's done it. Then I get interrupted, from her showing me. She's so excited. So there's so many different ways. It's like, you're never going to always get it right. And I love the guy that's like the news anchor that had his kids come in, and then his wife's like, you know,
listen, real life doesn't stop. It happens. And, you know, you just have to roll with the punches and figure out what works in that moment for you. And what works for you may not work for the next person. But I think, you know, parenthood and being working mothers, we just figure it out as we go, you know,
Yeah.
and give ourselves grace in the process. We can't be so hard on ourselves because life is
Right.
ups and downs, and there's a lot of things that we can account for in the process.
Yeah, and I think that when you were speaking on the whole intention, if you set your intention to just make sure the child feels loved, I can always pinpoint when I'm getting really toxic because I'm being mean.
Yes.
Or I can feel it bubbling up and I want to just yell at her, "You are not listening," or something. My child is so sensitive, bless her heart. And we all know that they need to learn to be tough emotionally, but not at 5, you know? And so I definitely feel like something that has worked for me is being better about holding myself accountable to when I feel that frustration bubbling up, because if it's the time of the month, I might need to step away quicker. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
If we're trying to build these companies too, that, you know, your business and my business, I know just individually, we've talked about the trajectory is something that can be really overwhelming, you know, just the amount of people that we feel called to help. And it can be stressful to think about how big you want your career to be. At the same time, realistically, feeling the weight of carrying that, it's like the bigger it gets and the more new things you do and the more you challenge yourself and the more layers you add to your company and all of the complexities of that, it's even more of a journey with your child, because you're having to learn new ways to not go off on them or to hurt their feelings or to spoil them with candy to distract them, you know. There's so many things that is like a temporary band-aid that I catch myself wanting to just like give her a sucker and an iPad and send her off. She would sit there for hours, but it's like now that she's in kindergarten, I'm feeling the weight of some of that time I should have maybe taken the screen away and given her a coloring book, because like her brain is not, it's I can tell that there are some things that are new for her to mentally process when it comes to a lot of the fine motor skills. You know, I am seeing now that I was just thinking today, I wish I would have had her doing more workbooks or maybe had a stylus on the iPad or like taken time to actually download certain apps. And so this definitely been a learning process for me. I mean, even though I felt good in the moment because I was having her watch educational stuff and she was watching Spanish, English videos. She was watching like all the PBS old school, like Crap Brothers and things that I could not even believe they still had on TV that were so great, you know, because they're like entertaining and then they're educational. But I've noticed that just by how she is and her personality, she's so easily distracted. It's really hard for her to hold her attention. And the more she's been reading these books in class and at home, the more I've noticed that she can sit longer and she can write longer and she can draw longer and she's more interested in it. At first, she used to get really frustrated. So if you're, you know, it's 2021, and if you're a parent that has a child that has had a lot of screen time, even though there's so many benefits to that, I feel like, you know, once they get in school, at least they're having all that time to be working on those motor skills. And so I don't feel as bad when she comes home to let her have an hour of it or so. But I have noticed that is one thing that I wish I would have maybe had her do more interactive, like puzzles. My mom had little puzzles, and there are so many apps where they're still interacting. And I think that would have helped my child have a little bit more focus and patience with how much she has to actually focus, not just how long she wants to focus and then click to the next video. I watched her one time and she was like, click, 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 click. And I was like, whoa, can you just watch one for like more than 10 seconds? And so For me, it's definitely been sort of a readjustment mentally of like how I might let her, like what apps to use. And I would love to know, especially in the comments, if anybody watching, or if you also, Rashida, know of any apps that you found that are really interactive. I've been really obsessed with trying to find those lately. Little matching games and puzzle games where they're popping balloons and matching numbers and letters. I think that the interactive apps are just as engaging for them. And I think that they're a really cool way for them to kind of have a balance of like thinking and not just watching. So I'd love to know more of those because I need to get my child on that ASAP.
One in particular, it's called Khan Academy Kids, KHAN. It's a free app. And we have used that, and I do like, it covers reading and math, and it is very interactive. There's stories, there's music, so I highly recommend that one. And just going back to what you said before, it's definitely a learning process. We start where we are and we do what we can, and then we evolve and we learn what our children's strengths are, and then maybe we can play to those strengths. Like my daughter, she really loves art, so maybe next time, instead of going watch a video on YouTube, maybe I'll have her paint a nice picture for me while I'm doing work. So we learn as we go, and like I said, the most important thing is just to not be so hard on yourself. Like, motherhood is already hard enough. So
yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for saying that. And really, it's so beautiful for you to share everything that you're learning as you go. And I know that there's always a temptation to feel like I'm still figuring this out. So I just wanted to thank you for your time today, for just being willing to always be so vulnerable and sharing your process. And I think it really sets a good example. It leads by example when you post about needing to take social media breaks and needing to really focus on self-care, and also while still having a life, you and your daughter are out doing all the things. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
So
I mean, she literally seems like she does not have a dull moment. And so you guys are really killing it. It's so good to see how connected you guys are, always on the go together. And then she's always smiling. I mean, even when she seems probably emotional, it's like you can tell that it's just she's so loved and she has such a beautiful energy. And I just know that that's the whole goal, is just to keep that intact as much as we can. It's not let our own traumas, interfere with that. So thank you always for being a source of healing and for always sharing what you're learning. And I just want to thank you for contributing to the conversation. So is there anything at all that you want to share with anybody, where they can find you on social media and how to follow your work and how to tap in with your community that you're building?
Yeah, so well, thank you for having me. This has been amazing, and conversation is much needed, and there are many, many conversations to have. You can find me on Instagram at Rashida Marie Thompson. I'm taking a little bit of break, but I will be back. But there's plenty of content videos that you can follow. Next month, I'm launching a beta program. It's a 6-week masterclass for new moms and first-time moms about, how to find yourself again and pursue your dreams again after becoming a mom without the guilt. That's the thing, because we can feel guilty and feel like we need balance in our lives, but balance is relative. I like to say harmony, because not everything can have equal attention at all times. But anyway, I'm on IG. Find me on Facebook, Rashida Thompson. But Leslie, thank you so much for having me. This has been awesome.
All right, great. And I honestly feel like we could have so many more conversations, especially around guilt alone. But in the meantime, I know that you have so much content that people can dive into and go back and check out all the things that you posted. And it's just things that we need to practice every day. So find the posts that help you so much, save them, share them, remind yourself of all this stuff daily, because it really is a challenge daily. I mean, I know I have to practice, mental, physical, and spiritual wellness, self-care every day, all day. Not all day, because then I never get anything done, but all day, every day, intentionally. It has to be structured into your day. That is the root of all of this. And we can have the ability to keep our mind, body, and spirit well, so that we can be the parent and maternal figure and mom that we want to be, while still building our careers and going after our dreams. And thank you again for taking your time today. And I can't wait to hear from everybody about what they really would love to know more about. If you're struggling with anything postpartum, I'm telling you, it's the most absolutely normal thing. You have hormones going crazy. You have so many chemicals in your body that are responsible for the way you're feeling. And if you tap into the things that you can do to help heal that, you will feel the difference. And then you can take the tools that you learn with Rashida or at the Collective Compass or with the therapist or whomever you're tapping into, and then you can use those on top of the foundation of having good holistic health. So thanks again, Rashida, and I will see you guys soon.
Thank you.
Live a happy, healthy, whole life, mind, body, and soul. Hey, you guys, it's Leslie, the founder of the Collective Compass, your resource for all your holistic health biohacks for the female, globally minded entrepreneur. I know there are some things that you're doing that are still keeping you in self-sabotage, and you may not even know it. And there may be people around you who are not on the same path that you're on, and they may be giving you some negative energy. Through the next series of videos related to all the ways you're trying to better yourself, will really break down some of those limiting beliefs that maybe you have inside your head or that you hear in your external environment. And I'm going to show you how to process those in a way where you can have a different perspective that's actually going to help you change that negative thought into something positive, and then it will no longer be a source of your self-sabotage or a negative trigger that you may encounter externally. What we teach you how to do at the Collective Compass when you rewire your perspective and practice habits that really support that type of lifestyle that's going to connect you to your inner guidance system, and it's going to allow you to live happy, healthy, whole.